Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. The Honorable Professor Datuk Sri Dr. Said Arabi Syed Abdullah Aidid, the former rector of IIUM, Professor Dr. Shukran Abdul Rahman, Dean of Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman Kuliah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences, AHAS KIRKHS, Deputy Deans, Senior Deputy Director, Heads of Department, Academics, Staff, Brothers and Sisters, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the AHAS KIRKHS Spiritual Enhancement Session number 11, 2022, Recitations of Surah Yasin and Short Tazkirah. My name is Muhammad Irfan Safwan bin Anton from the Secretariat of Communications, KOSA, and also your master of the ceremony for this session. Inshallah, we will begin our session with Ummul Quran Al-Fatiha. Amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After performing Maghrib prayer, we have this opportunity to meet virtually in these special sessions to recite Surah Yasin, listen to some reminders, and make dua for all of us and our family members so that we will stay strong to face any challenges and any difficulties in this life. We will also make dua for Dr. Muhammad Som Sujimon, the former Dean of KIRKHS, and Sabariah binti Ibrahim alias Abdul Rahim, the mother of Association Professor Hazizan Muhammad Nun, who have passed away recently. We pray that Allah will grant manifold blessings and forgiveness and will include their souls as those who are deserving His clemency and rewards in Jannah. Let us also pray for our students who are sitting for end of semester examination. May Allah ease their efforts. We also hope that Allah will protect us from the danger of COVID-19 and shower His mercy and blessings upon us all the time. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Without further delay, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Shukran Abdul Rahman, Dean of AHAS KIRKHS, to deliver his speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amin. Thank you, Brother Irfan, for presiding the session tonight. I would like to join Irfan in offering our condolences to Associate Professor Dr. Hazizan Muhammad Noon on the demise of his beloved mother recently. And Amin on the other dua as well. Thank you to all members who participate in this Yasin recitation, and later we are going to listen to short tazkirah by Associate Professor Dr. Mahmudul Hassan. So Associate Professor Dr. Mahmudul Hassan, thank you very much for your readiness and willingness to share your knowledge with all of us tonight. Today marks the end of Zulqa'dah, and tomorrow we will start our Zulhijjah. And I would like to take this opportunity to wish all of you Adha Mubarak, and for those who are leaving for Hajj, we make dua that you have safe journey and Hajj Mabrur, inshallah. So without further ado, I would like to pass this back to the MC, and after that we can recite Yasin. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Shukran, for the speech. Distinguished audience, brothers and sisters, now I would like to invite Association Professor Dr. Muhammad Mahmudul Hassan from the Department of English Language and Literature to lead the recitations of Surah Yasin and Dua and deliver the short tazkirah. Please welcome, Doctor.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. And thank you, Brother Irfan, for such a wonderful opening, and Professor Shukran and Professor Sayyid Arabi Aidid and others who have joined this program. I'm grateful to all of you for making time to attend this online program. And my special thanks go to Professor Shukran for extending this opportunity to me to share some of my understanding with my colleagues. I was given the liberty to determine the order of my presentation today. So this is how I will go about it. I will talk about our approach to the Quran for a bit, and then I will recite Surah Yasin, and then at the end I will talk about self-development with reference to Jalaluddin Rumi and Muhammad Iqbal. A few years ago, I wrote an article, and the title was How Muslims Trivialize the Quran. And in that article, I talk about our approach to the Quran. And I brought the questions of adl and zulm. And we know that adl means equilibrium, or wadwa shay'in fi mahallihi, to put things in the correct place. And zulm means disequilibrium, or wadwa shay'in fi ghayri mahallihi, or to putting things in the wrong places. So from that perspective, if we treat the Quran wrongly, that will be zulm to the Quran. And we need to do adl to the Quran. We need to treat the Quran the way we are supposed to do. I have noticed that when we overemphasize certain verses from the Quran, certain surahs from the Quran, there is a danger that we may ignore or we may forget about the rest of the Quran. The Quran has come to us as a whole. The whole Quran is our guidance. We cannot decide on a particular aspect of our belief or our way of life on the basis of only one surah or one verse. We need to consider the entirety of the Quran if we want to reach a conclusion, if we want to reach a ruling. And that's why while we often read Ayatul Kursi or Surah Yasin for various purposes, but we should not forget that we need to read the Quran in totality, not in fragments. In the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 2 and verse 38, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the term hudan. Hudan means guidance. فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَن تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. This is from verse 38 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah told Adam and Hawa that you go away, you go to the earth, but there will be a guidance from me. And those who follow the guidance, they have nothing to worry, they have no fear. So the Quran has come as a guidance to us. And if we want to understand the guidance, we need to read the whole Quran, not only a particular verse or a particular surah. With this understanding, I would start reading Surah Yasin. I again repeat that while we read Surah Yasin on certain occasions, but we need to keep in mind that the Quran is the whole Quran, not only one surah. And this is my very personal opinion, and I may be wrong, and there may be discussion on it. When I see Quran being fragmented, let's say one part of Quran is being printed separately, I feel sad, because there is a danger that people may focus only on those sections of the Quran, and they may remain forgetful about the rest. For example, in many masajid, we see Surah Yasin separately from the Quran. And I believe this is not the right approach to the Quran. We need to take the Quran as a whole. If someone wants to read Surah Yasin, that person can open Surah Yasin from the Quran. But Surah Yasin does not need to be printed separately, because I see a danger that if Surah Yasin is printed separately, then people may focus only on Surah Yasin and they may forget about the rest of the Quran. This is my humble opinion. I may be wrong, and I would be grateful if my colleagues correct me or share their views. So with these few words, I am now reading Surah Yasin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة وإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشاها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله المولانا العظيم. So now after reciting Surah Yasin, I just want to share with my colleagues some of my ideas about the concept of self-development, especially with regard to our knowledge and scholarship and our competence. And as I said earlier, I would refer to two writers. One is Maulana Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi, and the other one is Muhammad Iqbal. Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi lived in the 13th century. And in the 13th century, Central Asia and the Muslim countries in that region were attacked by the Mongols. So Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi with his father and others migrated first from Iran, not exactly Iran, but the place where he was born is called Balkh. Balkh is in today's Afghanistan. So from there they migrated to Baghdad, and then from Baghdad to Mecca, from Mecca to Syria, Aleppo, and then from Syria to Konya in Turkey. And eventually they settled down in Konya, which is in Turkey, and that is why he is called Rumi. At that time, Turkey was under the Byzantine Empire, and the Byzantine Empire in Arabic is called Rum. And this is how we have a surah in the Quran, Surah Ar-Rum, where Allah says, Alif Lam Mim Ghulibatir Rum. So that Rum is the Byzantine Empire. Since Rumi settled down in Konya, that's why he is called Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi. His actual name was actually Muhammad, and then his father added the word Jalaluddin. Jalaluddin means the majesty of religion or the glory of religion. And then he became Rumi because of his association with Konya or Turkey. So the time where Rumi was living, the time was troubling for Muslims because there was continuous attack by the Mongols, one after another. And then the time when Iqbal lived was again the period of colonization. Almost the entire Muslim world was colonized by the Europeans. So both Rumi and Iqbal, they focused in their works on the development of the self. In Rumi, it is not very obvious, but if we read his work carefully, we see that he talks about personal relationship with God. That is one way to elevate oneself. That is one way to be competent, to develop oneself. And with Muhammad Iqbal, it is obvious because he wrote a book called Asrar-e-Khudi, The Secrets of the Self. And in that book, he talks about the development of the self, how to elevate oneself. Now, I will talk about, I will discuss an excerpt from Rumi first, and then I will go to Muhammad Iqbal. In one of his poems, Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi said this, and this is English translation. By the way, when we talk about Rumi, we also need to bear in mind that Rumi is grossly distorted by Western writers. There are writers like A.J. Arbery and the one woman from Germany, her name is Anne-Marie Schimmel. These are very good scholars, they are fair scholars, and they represented Rumi more or less correctly. But in our contemporary time, we have a poet in America, his name is Coleman Burks. And Coleman Burks, through his translation, he misrepresented Rumi, and he deleted or erased all Islamic references from Rumi's poetry. In places where Rumi talks about Iman, he changed the word Iman to good deeds or a good living, whatever. And in places where Rumi refers to Jannah, he changed the term Jannah to a secular term. And Coleman Burks doesn't know Arabic, he doesn't know Persian. He simply based his translation on existing translation by other scholars and made changes. So this is something that we need to bear in mind. The Rumi is grossly misrepresented by Coleman Burks. And unfortunately, Coleman Burke's translation is widely available all around the world. So again, the translation I am reading is by Reynold Nicholson. And Reynold Nicholson, A.J. Arbery, and Mary Schimmel, these are good scholars, and their translation of Rumi is more or less reliable. So Rumi said, I died as mineral and became a plant. I died as plant and rose to animal. The word die here doesn't mean physical death. Die here means I persevered. I made sacrifices. I struggled. So he was in a state of mineral, something that is inorganic. He struggled from that state and he became a plant. A plant is something that has a shape which is organic. Then Rumi continued. He said, I died as plant and rose to animal. So from the state of plant, I continued to struggle, I continued to persevere, and then I reached the status of animal. And that is not the end. He said, I died as animal and I was a man. From the state of animal, I continued to struggle, I continued to make sacrifices, then I became a human being. And then he said, why should I fear? When was I less by dying? So since all my struggles lead me to a higher position, so why do I need to worry about struggling? When was I less? by dying? When was I a loser by dying? Yet once more I shall die as man. And he said, when I reach the status of a human being, I will not stop. In other words, in Rumi's worldview, the life of a believer is a tale of continuous progression. A believer will never be happy or complacent with what he has attained. He will continue to struggle and continue to thrive. He said, yet once more I shall die as man. As human being, I will continue to make sacrifices. I will continue to persevere and struggle, to soar with angels blessed, to reach the status of angels. So from human being, I will reach the status of angelhood. And then he said, but even from angelhood, I must pass on. He said, I will not stop even when I am in the status of angels. I must pass on. I will continue my journey of progression. All except God doth perish. This is a direct translation of a verse from Surah KIRKHS. Kullu shayin halikun illa wajha. All except God doth perish. Then he said, when I have sacrificed my angel soul, when I continue to make sacrifices from the status of angels, I shall become what no mind ever conceived. I will become, my status will be so elevated that no one can ever conceive, can ever understand, can ever imagine what my status will be. So in this excerpt, Rumi says that the life of a believer, the life of a Muslim cannot be complacent, cannot be stagnant. It must continue, it must thrive, it must develop. And when I teach my students, I see that my students feel very motivated when they read this kind of poems by Rumi. Now, Rumi had huge influence on Muhammad Iqbal. And just for those who may not know much about Iqbal, Iqbal was born in 1877 and then he died in 1938. I just want to say a few pieces of information about Iqbal just to understand what kind of a scholar he was. Iqbal studied English literature at Lahore Government College, which is now a university. And at that time, his teacher was Thomas Arnold. Thomas Arnold was an Orientalist, a British colonial educationist who was sent to the colony for educational purposes. And Thomas Arnold was greatly pleased by the scholarship of Muhammad Iqbal. So after he went back to Britain, Thomas Arnold encouraged Iqbal to come to Europe for higher education. And this is how Iqbal went to Cambridge to study, and then he did other things. So Iqbal went to Cambridge in September 1905, and he returned from Europe in July 1908. In other words, he stayed in Europe for 2 years, 10 months. And in 2 years, 10 months, this is what Iqbal did. He completed a master's from Cambridge. He completed Bar at Law from London. He completed PhD from Munich University. He taught at London University as a professor for 6 months. All these happened in 2 years, 10 months. This is how great Iqbal was. And I was in Heidelberg in 2009, and then I was amazed to see the main road in Heidelberg is named after Iqbal. It's called Iqbal Ufer. Iqbal Ufer is the main road, which is a very important tourist attraction in the city of Heidelberg. So this is because Iqbal, while he was studying in Europe, he attended some classes in Heidelberg. He stayed in Heidelberg for a brief period of time. And the city of Heidelberg want to remember this. And this is how they showed respect to Iqbal. So anyway, so Iqbal in his introduction to Asrar al-Khudi, he talks about this self-development. And Iqbal says that a soul or a person should be in a state of tension, not in a state of relaxation. So I repeat, Iqbal says that for a person or for ego to develop, to thrive, it needs to be in a state of tension and can continue only if that state is maintained. That means tension in a positive sense, tension or anxiety or restlessness. When we reach a certain status intellectually or in any way, we should not be complacent. This is what Iqbal wants to say, that we need to be in a state of tension. If that state of tension is not maintained, relaxation will ensue. He said, if we do not maintain this state of tension, if we become complacent, then we will be relaxed and our development will stop. Since personality or the state of tension is the most valuable achievement of man, he should see that he does not revert to a state of relaxation. So Iqbal believes that the state of tension is the most valuable achievement. When we have this kind of mentality, have this kind of attitude that we are not happy with what we have achieved, then we will not revert to a state of relaxation. And this is itself an achievement, that we are not happy with whatever we have achieved. And then Iqbal says, as love fortifies the ego, asking weakens it. And this is something that motivated me to write an essay. Some of my colleagues may have noticed that I talked about past glory and present gloom of Muslim scholarship. So this is what partly inspired me, that Iqbal says, asking or begging weakens the ego. All that is achieved without personal effort comes under asking. If our ancestors achieved something and we simply receive it from them, so according to Iqbal, this comes under asking, as if we are begging. The son of a rich man who inherits his father's wealth is an asker or a beggar. He is blunt here. He says the son of a rich man who inherits his father's wealth is an asker or a beggar. So the same goes with us. If we believe that our ancestors achieved big milestones and they were glorious, but if we are complacent, then we are asker, we are beggar. So is everyone who thinks the thoughts of others. And again, people who have nothing of their own understanding and of their own thinking, and they simply borrow the thoughts from others, especially in today's world, most people borrow the philosophies from the West. So Iqbal believed that these are beggars because they have nothing of their own understanding, of their own thinking process. Thus, in order to fortify the ego, we must cultivate love. The love is the power of assimilative action. That means action, work. And this is something that Allah says in the Quran again and again. فَلْيَعْمَلِ الْعَامِلُونَ. So all of us need to be active. And avoid all forms of asking. Asking means inaction or complacency. The lesson of assimilative action is given by the life of the Prophet. So he believed that the life of assimilative action or an active life, our Prophet is our role model. So this is what I wanted to share with my colleagues, that we as academics, we must continue to thrive. And this is a lesson I learned from the Quran, I learned from Hadith, and this is a lesson I learned from Rumi and from Iqbal, that we should not be complacent with whatever we have achieved. We must be in a state of tension, in a state of anxiety, so that we can reach higher goals and we can make big landmarks. And when we are in a state of relaxation and when we do not make enough effort, then many things will happen. Like we will always be reliant on others for knowledge, for scholarship, and for many other things. For example, the reason why Coleman Barks has been able to misrepresent Rumi, to distort the message of Rumi, is because there has been a vacuum, uh, there has been a void or an emptiness. We Muslims have not been able to produce good English translation of Rumi, and this is how Coleman Barks stepped in and he produced his translation, which has now become widespread all around the world. If we had alternatives, a better alternative, perhaps that would not happen. So with this, I conclude my tadhkira, and I thank you all for listening to me, and I would love to hear from others. And if there is a Q&A session, I'd be happy to answer your queries or questions, and then we will make dua, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Mahmudul Hassan, for leading the recitations, delivering the short tazkirah, and sharing new information with us. So, I open for Q&A sessions if there's any question from the participant. If there is no questions from the participant, we may proceed uh, to request Dr. Mahmudul to proceed with the dua, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربي اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. Ya Rabbul Alameen, you accept our Surah Yasin recitation and the time we have invested in your cause. Ya Allah, many of us have lost our parents. Ya Allah, we seek forgiveness on behalf of our parents. Ya Allah, our parents did so much for us. Ya Allah, we couldn't repay their debt. Ya Allah, we beg your forgiveness on their behalf. Ya Allah, those of us who have parents, you make it easy for us to look after them and make it possible for us to look after them. Oh Allah, those of us who have children, you make our children a source of happiness and source of consolation for us. Ya Allah, many of our students are facing exams. Ya Allah, make it easy for them. Oh Allah, make our students future leaders of the Ummah, future leaders of the humanity, so that they can contribute in various areas for the betterment of all. Ya Allah, you increase us in knowledge. Ya Allah, you protect us from complacency. Ya Allah, you protect us from inaction. Ya Allah, you make it possible for us so that we can represent the Muslim Ummah in scholarship, in knowledge, in many other fields. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, for leading the recitations of dua. May Allah bless each and every one of us for joining these sessions. Now, we have come to the end of the sessions. We truly appreciate your participation in this special prayer, and please forgive us for any shortcomings throughout the sessions. With that, we end these sessions with Tasbih Kafarah and Surah Al-As. Subhanakallah. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmoud. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for attending.
Assalamualaikum.